Hello everyone, thanks for listening in today. We're very excited to share an update on how collaboration leads to Phase 1 construction of the Hallwood Side Channel and Floodplain Restoration Project on the Lower Yuba River. This has been a long-running project with many collaborating agencies, stakeholders, and teaming partners across federal, state, and local levels, and a really fantastic example of the possibilities of public-private teaming partnerships. The goal of the project is to restore and enhance ecosystem processes for productive juvenile salmonid rearing habitat. We aim to increase the natural production of fall-run and spring-run Chinook salmon and Central Valley steelhead on the Lower Yuba River near Marysville, California. This project, being originally funded by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Anadromous Fish Restoration Program, AFRP, supports the CVPIA AFRP doubling goal to make all reasonable efforts to at least double the natural production of anadromous fish in California's Central Valley rivers and streams. The Lower Yuba River is situated in the Yuba Goldfields, east of Marysville, where hundreds of millions of cubic yards of hydraulic mining sediment wash down from the Sierras into the valley, raising the riverbed. After hydraulic mining was banned, humans subsequently began dredge mining for gold throughout the 10,000 acres of the goldfields, leaving an otherworldly looking topography that the Yuba River now runs through. The area now also has several aggregate mining producers. We have a great group of teaming partners that have come together on this project to make implementation happen. Planning, permitting, design, pre-project monitoring, and a portion of implementation was originally funded by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, AFRP, whereby cbec and team won a grant to support those tasks. cbec is supported by Kramer Fish Sciences, who are the lead biologists, South Yuba River Citizens League, who are supporting monitoring, riparian planting, and implementation assistance, and stakeholder and public outreach, and Horizon Water and Environment, who perform cultural resources consultations. In 2019, Yuba Water Agency joined the team as local implementation lead as we began Phase 1 contracting and construction. Yuba Water Agency is supported by Hand & Co. for construction management and MBK engineers for program management, grade verification, and other tasks. Tykert is key in this public-private partnership as a major landowner at the site and is also serving as the implementation contractor. Western Aggregates is also a partnering landowner. We began conceptual planning and performing stakeholder outreach with the landowners and potential funders in 2012-2013, with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service grant awarded to cbec in 2013. Kramer Fish Sciences performed pre-project biological monitoring from 2014 to 2016 with some supplemental data collection prior to fine grading in 2020. cbec and team advanced the design from 2014 to 2017 to support permitting that was occurring in tandem from 2015 to 2018. With the NEPA-CEQA process wrapping up with the Notice of Determination and adoption of a mitigated negative declaration in December of 2017. Contracting occurred between 2017 and 2019 as Yuba Water Agency joined the team in 2019. We began Phase 1 construction with rough grading in August of 2019 and are continuing with Phase 1 rough and fine grading, planned to be completed around November of this year. This is a very large project and has thus been broken up into 4 phases. Phases 2 through 4 will take an additional 3 or 4 years to complete, depending on demand for aggregate and funding availability. Here you can see the overall project footprint broken up into 4 phases, each feasible in 1 construction year from about April to November. Phase 1, which is currently under construction and shown in blue, creates or enhances 89 acres of juvenile salmonid rearing habitat. Phase 2, which is planned for implementation in 2021, is 34 acres of enhancements. Phase 3 is 13 acres. Phase 4 is 21 acres. Once fully implemented, the project would provide 157 acres of floodplain and riparian habitat enhancements on the Lower Yuba River. As you'll see in the coming slides, the project setting is in the highly modified Yuba Goldfields, with large man-made dredger tailings piles called training walls flanking the north and south edges of the river, as well as bisecting the floodplain and separating the main channel from its floodplain. The project was designed with the mindset that removing unnatural constraints to river processes will yield the greatest benefits. This graphic shows a typical section in the existing conditions on the top and project conditions on the bottom. The main channel is on the left, and you can see a large tailings pile called the middle training wall, separating it from the floodplain on the right. The key habitat enhancement action is working with the local landowner and aggregate processing facility at Tykert to remove that gravel and cobble from the middle training wall and other high elevation gravel bar and floodplain areas. We're also carving in a network of seasonal and perennial channels that will inundate at a range of flows. All of this is intended to increase the lateral connectivity of the river with its floodplain and increase the frequency and duration of inundation to provide rearing juvenile salmonids suitable habitat to grow strong before emigrating out to the ocean. We'll also be performing riparian planting, and the lowered floodplain areas are hypothesized to facilitate some natural recruitment as well. We do plan on placing some large wood structures in future phases. Here you can see the topographic gradients on the site, and of particular interest is the middle training wall running approximately 2 miles along the length of the site and sitting anywhere from 40 to 100 feet above the surrounding floodplain elevations. The training walls were constructed in the early 1900s by the California Debris Commission to train the river, and the middle training wall resulted due to dredging this wide area and was a function of the dredger arm's ability to place that sediment. The project site is about 8 miles east of the city of Marysville, California, near the community of Hallwood, and immediately downstream of the Corps' Daguerre Point Dam. This aerial image from the spring of 2017 shows the main channel, Lower Yuba River, along the south, and the historic overflow channel or floodplain along the north. The flood events of winter 2017 modified the upper overflow channel area, and a portion of the middle training wall was eroded away. Historically, this overflow channel only connected well above flows considered to be ecologically important for rearing juvenile salmonids and for short periods. At the downstream end of the overflow channel, you can see a series of large, deep ponds that currently provide habitat for predators of juvenile salmonids. You can also see the middle training wall running along the length of the site and the north and south training walls. Tykert's aggregate processing facility sits on the north bank of the river at the midpoint of the site, and Tykert's property line runs along the crest of the middle training wall as they own the land to the north. Western Aggregates property is on the south. There are also existing power lines and transmission towers running through the site operated by PG&E and Western Area Power Administration, or WAPA. Now we're looking at the topography and bathymetry with project grading, showing all 4 phases. We'll remove a large majority of the middle training wall to increase lateral connectivity in all phases. In phase 1, which is outlined in blue, we're also lowering the existing high elevation gravel bars and floodplain in the upper overflow channel to bring water into those areas more frequently and for longer to provide suitable depths and velocities for rearing juvenile salmonids. We're raising the bed elevation of the deep ponds at the lower end of the overflow channel to exclude predatory fish species. We're also creating a seasonal habitat channel along the main channel on the large gravel bar after lowering that area to more frequently inundating elevations. Phases 2 through 4 include more middle training wall removal, gravel bar lowering, and seasonal habitat channel creation. We do retain some portions of the middle training wall to perform geomorphic functions and are also leaving a portion near the WAPA towers and filling in low zones in that area in coordination with and under review of WAPA. Riparian planting will be focused along some created habitat channel edges and in floodplain areas on gravel bars and in the middle training wall footprint. Phases 1 and 2 are funded by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Yuba Water Agency. We'll be removing about 3.2 million cubic yards of gravel and cobble from the middle training wall and high gravel bars over the course of the full project. And this project will take several years to implement. By teaming with Tykert as the landowner with an aggregate processing facility on the north bank of the river, where we can utilize conveyors to directly remove that material, the majority of sediment removal is at no cost to the project and makes the project economically feasible. This is looking downstream along the lowermost portion of the site. You can see the middle training wall on the left and the main channel further off to the left and downstream at the confluence with the overflow channel. The north training wall is on the right. You'll notice that along the toes of the training walls, there are some nice riparian trees. Another key element of our design is to keep the existing riparian resources intact to provide shade, cover, and food to rearing juvenile salmonids. This pond at the downstream end of the overflow channel is colloquially called the Blue Lagoon, and Kramer Fish Sciences has observed predation of juvenile salmonids during pre-project monitoring here. By filling in these ponds, raising the bed elevation, and connecting the perennial channel, rearing channel through this area, we intend to exclude those predators during the rearing season from January to June. Here we're looking at the rough grading that occurred in April of 2020 to lower the gravel bar along the main channel off to the left and make way for the seasonal channel in that area. Tykert Construction utilized push-pull scrapers and dozers to grade down and remove about 150,000 cubic yards of sediment. Off in the distance, you can see the conveyor system where a front loader is scooping material into a hopper and sending it directly to the plant for processing. This imagery was taken in early July of 2020, right before fine grading of habitat channels began. You can see the result of rough grading down the gravel bar along the main channel and seasonal channel in that area. As we pan toward the middle training wall, you can see Tykert's conveyor system, which has been extended further to the east along the footprint of the middle wall and the processing plant on the north. A loader is bringing a bucket of sediment to the hopper. And note the size of the middle training wall. Off to the left, you can see the high and dry overflow channel that was rough graded down in May of 2020 to make way for the perennial channel and habitat in that area. The perennial channel will disconnect when the river drops to spawning flows late in the summer, but remain connected to groundwater through an infiltration gallery at the inlet. Further east, you can see the phase 2 area and middle training wall to be removed to increase lateral connectivity there. Now I want to share a time lapse of middle training wall removal and rough grading activities in 2020. We're looking east, and this is rather flashy to watch. I mentioned that we began rough grading in 2019. In 2019, Tykert removed about 330,000 cubic yards of sediment from the middle training wall, the majority of which you can see on the left as the area where a portion of the middle training wall once was. Now you can see scrapers bringing in material from the gravel bars and overflow channel and temporarily stockpiling it for Tykert materials to run to the plant. After rough grading in those areas was completed, loaders worked to remove the stockpiled material and remaining middle training wall. Phase 1 involves removing 1.2 million cubic yards of sediment from the floodplain, and as of early August 2020, Tykert had removed about 800,000 cubic yards. The remainder is planned to be completed by around November of this year. At the end of the year, you'll be able to see through to the riparian vegetation on the south slope of the middle training wall, and water from the main channel will be able to connect across these areas. As a bit more perspective on the setting we're working in with these training walls, the Yuba River was not historically in this location. By training the river between the north and south training walls to protect local and downstream landowners, the byproduct of this was the middle wall separating the main river from its floodplain. This is truly an artificial construct in this heavily altered river system, and a great opportunity for large-scale habitat enhancement by topographic modifications. In mid-July, Tykert Construction began fine grading the habitat channels. Here we see dozers, excavators, and haul trucks filling in the deep ponds that daylight subsurface flow at the midpoint of the site in summer conditions. They're working their way from upstream to downstream to raise bed elevations in those deep ponds to exclude predators and create suitable depths and velocities for juvenile rearing fish when they're in the river from January to June. The higher elevation upper overflow channel will then be connected to the previously large ponds in the lower overflow channel. This is a very recent shot from Doug Handon, the construction manager, on August 18th, 2020. I want to caveat that grading is still very much in an interim condition and that the features that you see are in no way complete, but you can see the habitats forming. We're looking upstream. The overflow channel is on the left and the main channel is on the right. You can see more of the large ponds have been filled and we're starting to carve the perennial channel into the increased bed elevation of the ponds. Above the temporary overflow crossing, you can see the upper overflow channel's floodplains, which have been lowered, and the beginnings of the riffle pool sequences in the perennial channel. Meanwhile, Tykert continues to perform rough grading activities to remove the phase 1 sediment from the middle training wall. Alcoves will be connected to this perennial channel. At the upstream end of the perennial channel, we can see the area where the infiltration gallery will be constructed at the inlet as soon as flows drop to minimum levels for the summer in September. Fine grading is planned to wrap up in the mid to late October 2020, when we'll leave the site with a new completed perennial channel ready to inundate for rearing fish next spring. We'll be performing riparian planting in October to November, and rough grading will conclude around November as well. cbec will perform an as-built survey, and then the team will begin post-project physical and biological monitoring for the phase 1 completed grading area of 89 acres in early 2021. This project is a great example of public-private partnership whereby we form relationships with local landowners in the aggregate mining industry to perform low-cost rough grading. The situation of Tykert's aggregate processing facility and the opportunity to increase floodplain habitat at the site is truly a win-win. Not only will we see habitat benefits, but the fully implemented project shows an important flood benefit with a 3-foot reduction in water surface elevation for the 100-year event. Removing the middle training wall provides more space for conveyance of floodwater between the north and south training walls. We also expect to see benefits to the local economy due to jobs and sales in the aggregates industry and benefits linked to the recreational fishery, given the lower Yuba River's popularity with steelhead and salmon anglers. In teaming with partners like the South Yuba River Citizens League, we'll continue to provide educational benefits and community involvement. Links with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and UC Davis have provided opportunities for scientific research, and the team has completed pre-project monitoring and plans to continue post-project monitoring. Some funds are available through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, AFRP, and Yuba Water Agency for post-project monitoring, and the team will continue to seek funding for future monitoring efforts, as well as to support the final phases of the project, phases 3 and 4. This has truly been a multi-stakeholder, multi-agency project, and the team would not have been able to get to where we are today without the coordination, cooperation, and input from many, many people. It's been truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to participate in this effort and see it through from concept to implementation. We'd like to thank all the folks listed here, particularly the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, AFRP, and Yuba Water Agency for funding to support the project. Much gratitude to all the teaming partners, Kramer Fish Sciences, Circle, Horizon, MBK, Hand & Co., and Blankenship and Associates. We thank Tykert for seeing the collaborative vision on the project and for being a long-term partner to see this through to implementation. Now it's time to go grow some baby salmon. And I'd be happy to take any of your questions. Thank you.